Chase, video games, a passion, a big thing that we do here. Bowling, however,
Mm-hmm.
a pastime for the casual hour, it would seem.
The great American pastime.
Bowling.
Yeah.
You and I bowled tonight.
We did. Yeah, you were nice enough to be a sub for my bowling team. I don't think anybody really played well. We got crushed, but we had fun. You know,
Listen, we're
that's a good time.
professionals, professional gamers, professional bowlers, professional friends. That is the casual hour guarantee.
That's our promise. Yeah, you got
And you
it.
found us. We are down one. Johnny is on an assignment, and that assignment is being sick. So we wish him a speedy recovery. And Chase and I are going to have a field day as we dance on his ashes tonight. This is episode 294 of the Casual Hour. We're a podcast ostensibly about video games, mostly about Johnny being sick. I'm the host, Bobby Pease. Joining me tonight, Chase Kennedy, the gamer on the go, and we are thrilled to be here. Chase, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, got some food in me. Got some unsweetened tea here, and
That's the
I'm
best type
ready.
of tea. We are going to have a What You've Been Playing episode. So for those of you who are uninitiated, that means we are going to tell you about the games that we've been playing, and then we're going to cover some of the news stories around video games that we find interesting. Chase will go over the games that he's been playing. Buckle up because we've got some updates tonight on Live Alive, Super Robot Wars. I'm going to talk about Cyberpunk, the finals, Medieval Dynasty, and PGA 2K23. And then we'll talk a little bit about that new Logitech Cloud handheld, maybe some E3 news, some CD Projekt Red stuff. So that'll be in the back half of the episode. You know what's coming. We want you here for it. Get cozy because we're going to tell you about what Chase has been playing. Chase, what have you been playing?
I mean, I've still been playing a lot of easy come easy golf. That's just a nice thing to jump into every once in a
Sure.
while. I hit credits on that, which isn't really the end of the game. It's just when you hit level 12, they're like, I don't know, here's some credits for you. So that was cool, but there's still plenty more to play, and that's still just a nice thing to play on my breaks.
Hell of a
More
game.
substantially, though, yeah, oh, absolutely, fantastic game. More substantially, though, I have been playing some more Live Alive. I would like to finish that game relatively soon, so then I can
How
get
close
back.
do you think you are?
I have one or one and a half more stories to complete. I've got
Okay.
the near future story is the one that I'm in currently, and then I still have the Twilight of Edo Japan, which I'm looking
What's
forward
been
to
your
that one.
favorite so far?
Um, I think I think there's a lot of good qualities about a lot of them. I think the fighting game one, the one that's set in the present day, is still my favorite. We showed that off showed off some of that in the quick look that we did. That should be up tomorrow if you're watching live. Yesterday if you're watching the archive.
Yeah.
Um, and I just think that one's really cool because it's an RPG. It's kind of not an RPG because it is such a truncated thing. There's no traveling to towns or anything. It's just this series of fights, and it's presented very much like a Street Fighter. I think it's just really cool.
Neat.
Um, the one I'm currently in though is honestly really awesome as well. That's the near future one. I didn't expect that I was going to really like this one, and then I found out it's maybe the most anime of
Is that
all
the
of them.
little robot one where you're a robot?
No, that's the distant future. I've
Got
done
it.
that one. That one's also really cool because there's no battles until the very end of that one. It's a lot of walking around and talking to people. That one's pretty neat. But this one, the near future, you've got kind of an anime, spiky-haired protagonist. You walk around an overworld. It's a city area. It feels a little bit Dragon Ball-y in that way. It's also got a little bit of Earthbound in there because there's these weird there's this weird gang that all have skull helmets on,
Nice.
and they're just kind of terrorizing the town as you walk around. Um, you, your little sister has a turtle, a pet turtle that's dying, and there's a kind of mad scientist guy who uses liquefaction to
What's that?
yeah he turns the turtle into liquid
Yeesh.
turtle soup, but then he pours that liquid soupy mixture into a little mechanical robot turtle, and not a little mechanical, a big mechanical robot turtle.
Whoa.
Now
So
he's a
is that a mech turtle because there's technically a
yeah.
turtle in it?
Yes, yeah, I would call it a mech. So now you have this mech turtle with bowling ball hands as one of your party members, and that's kind of cool. There's another guy who's got like this big, crazy mohawk hairdo and rides a bike and has big '80s sunglasses on,
Hell yeah.
and he's a party member. It's and then there's a giant robot under the town, and it
How
seems
big?
like some point real big. This is super robot big. This is like a megazord big if you're a Power Rangers
Shit.
fan. That's just like hiding underneath the town, and I've seen it and it looks really cool. It actually is a cool throwback to the original mech anime. Oh, why am I not gonna remember the name of it? It's like a big blue robot. Let me see if
Oh,
I
the
can.
Iron Giant.
Um, Original mecha anime. I'm gonna get it here real quick. It is. Oh, fuck! Come on, Tetsujin 28 Go. That's right. So it does. It's also sometimes called Gigantor. The
Same.
robot looks a lot like that, with a little bit of Mazinger in it. It's got some really cool old mecha aesthetics to it. I think it's really neat, and it seems like that's going to be something that I control at some point. Also, your character has the power to read minds, so you kind of go around, you talk to people, but then you hit a different button and you hear what they're really thinking, which is an interesting kind of mechanic that's been introduced.
Huh.
It forces you to talk more and interact with NPCs more, which I think is kind of cool. But it's just got a lot of cool stuff going for it, and it's one of the meatier style of quests here of the 7 that Live Alive gives you at the beginning of the game. I'm having a good time with it, and then I've got the Twilight of Edo Japan, which also should be good. I think that one's probably also more of a main chunk than some of the other quicker ones that I've done before. So I'm wrapping up that. I'm still having a great time with that. It's one of the cooler games I've ever played, and I'm trying not to just burst through it,
Sure.
but I also know that I want to get this done so I can then go and play games like Norco and Neon White and Tinykin, things that I know that we want to potentially talk about for our Game of the Year episode. So,
And that's crazy to think because like we are like that shit's creeping on us.
it is. We're in mid October, baby. We've got a month and we got like a month and change.
Yeah. It's nuts
Because
to think about.
we start Game of the Year relatively early in December, early mid December. So you're right. It's coming. It's coming quick, and we've got some things that we all need to play. So when I'm not
So
playing
you're digging it though. You're liking that game.
yeah, oh yeah, Live's fantastic. I'm not 100% sure how I'm going to classify that come Game of the Year time, because while it is a brand new art style, mechanically it's the same game it was on the Super Famicom, although that game never came to the States. So in on one hand, that game's brand new to us over here if we're talking about US release dates for games. But at the same time, that's also a game that came out a long time ago.
Hey, you want to hear
Uh,
something really cool?
what's that?
There's only 8 episodes left before Game of the Year.
That's not cool. That's anxiety inducing. Why would you say something like that to me?
Well, I know it. Now you do, and now our guests do. So we've got 8 episodes left before we have to have Game of the Year deliberations.
Neon White will go quick. Tinykin, you told me it's kind of just the same thing over and over again. So if I
And
can
it's a
just
6-hour game. Like you could honestly, I say this lovingly, outside of seeing some cool world design, you could play that demo and be like, I like this game. I can talk about this game. I'm informed because it doesn't really change much outside of that. But it's well done. Like I enjoyed my time with it. There's just not a whole lot of variety outside of the first 1 to 2 levels.
And Norco is quick too. So for my backlog of like the things I absolutely need to finish before Game of the Year, I feel pretty good that I can accomplish those things. If I really wanted to throw a monkey wrench into things, I could say, "Oh, you guys are probably going to talk about Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Maybe I should try some of that." But there's absolutely not time for me to do that. That'd be
Well,
ridiculous.
I know starting this weekend, Johnny is, because he's going to be laid up for a bit. He said that he's going to really focus on his backlog this weekend. And he's
Cool.
going to try to knock out a few games that have been talked about here. Like Norco, you're talking a 4 to 5 hour commitment. That's a weekend game for sure. And I would
Yeah,
advise at this point, like there's been enough time between you last time you played it to start it over. And if you can commit
probably.
a weekend, like that's probably the best way to do it. Um, Xenoblade, I dig. I think it's cool. The size of that game has intimidated me on
Sure.
you need to play a lot of this. I would say you probably know what that game is. You know where you would fall with it. You might, I mean, shit, dude, like knowing you could end up falling for it and probably blowing past Johnny and I if you really truly went after it. But
I could totally see that happening, but at the same time, I don't think I want or need that to happen this year.
well,
Actually,
especially considering you're what 10, 12 days away from getting to play through Persona 5 Royale.
yeah, I'm sure that's gonna happen. But I know I'm gonna have a PC here relatively soon, and
Yeah.
that's gonna open up some possibilities. I could always go back to Temtem if I need to play some other stuff. I'm not hurting for games to play. That's for damn sure. And yet I still keep fucking with the old classics. It seems, and that transitions me to talking about Super Robot Wars 30, a game that I've talked about many times on this podcast, and um, honestly, probably still many more. That game's just big. There's so much game, and
It's
I'm
not big, but you also, I mean, it's big, but you also get peace and comfort from that.
I do. It's something that's nice to just load up and play a little bit of. The problem is I'm in the section that is the worst part of all Super Robot Wars games to me, which is you've kind of unlocked almost all the characters. There might be like a couple of secret characters that you haven't gotten yet, but for the most part, you're not collecting a bunch of new faces anymore. I have most of the upgrades. In fact, I have so many upgrade material things that I'm not even upgrading mechs anymore because it's kind of just busy work that I don't have to do. Um, there's just not a whole lot to shoot for other than finishing levels. And every level at this point, because I have so many mechs and because they want to try to keep some semblance of difficulty in here, they're just throwing so many guys at you, and every level feels like a fucking hour to an hour and a half slog. I mean, you could go back and watch my Let's Play of Super Robot Wars X on my YouTube channel, JCK Plays. The first handful of episodes, sometimes I was doing two missions in a single episode of that because, oh, this thing took 15-20 minutes and I can just pile on a couple. I've only got a few units to use. So yeah, let's just kind of power through. But when I'm getting to the midpoint and on, every episode is 45 minutes to an hour, and then the final episode I think took something like 2.5 to 3 hours, just for playing through all the stuff, reading all the dialogue, going through cutscene kind of stuff. It just takes a long time, and this is kind of the slog. It's really difficult to say I'm going to sit down and I'm going to play a lot of Super Robot Wars 30 today. I'm going to get a bunch of stuff done because I'm going to have to be there for a couple of hours and I'm really only going to get one or two missions done, and it's just chipping away. And this game specifically, with the way it is branched out the paths way more than previous games.
Yeah.
At previous games, you just keep doing the next chapter. That was the whole point of the thing. But this one, you always have a bunch of chapters open to you at any one time, and there's even places that you can just go in and grind. And I definitely don't want to do those. One, I have no need to grind, and two, that's just completely wasted time. Um, but I could do that,
I,
and just daunting to jump back into that game and know, all right, here's another hour and a half of my life that's going to be gone with very little to show
I want
for
to
it.
call something out.
Yeah.
We've talked for years about, and like, I want to preface this with, I think you've been hard on yourself over a few episodes, and I don't think you
Mm-hmm.
should be. Um, we've talked at length about this self-imposed pressure to be on the cutting edge of games. We talk about the
Sure.
podcast curse, and on one hand, I thoroughly enjoy game discovery and checking out new games. It's the whole reason we do this. On the other hand, I oftentimes feel like it's not easy to settle into a game because I need to be playing new things. But
Yeah.
you've been able to this year, and you've given yourself some shit about it, but I don't think you should. You've been able to like just lean into games that you really appreciate and that you enjoy. And you've played new things too, for sure. But like there was a game that you felt obligated with, the Digimon game. Like, even though it wasn't exactly for you, you saw it through. Super Robot Wars.
I didn't see it through that game. I still have like half of that game left to play.
Well, fair, but I mean, like, even with Easy Come Easy Golf, like
Yeah.
I've busted your chops about, like, oh yeah, we've heard about that, but at the same time, like, that is absolutely a game that you can cut back and just enjoy. And really, what you're doing right now is highlighting why we play games and the enjoyment that they come, the pastime element, not this sicko mindset of podcasting new shit,
Right.
which
Absolutely. Like,
I like it, but it's not exactly what we should be doing.
right. Yeah, I mean it is that dilemma we've talked about where you feel like you always need to bring something new to the table, because if I just talk about Super Robot Wars 30 and Hold Down and Fire Emblem Heroes and Easy Come Easy Golf every week, which are basically the games that I play, um, that just gets boring. And also we have a game of the, like you said, we have a game of the year show coming in 8 episodes. There's a lot of stuff I want to be able to talk about, I want to have knowledge about, and I want to make sure it gets a fair shake, which means I need to try those games. Um, I guess part of it is I'm a little envious of you, because one, you're always bringing new stuff to every podcast, which is incredible and great, because it probably gives us more content than we deserve. Um, but somehow you also finish a lot of games. Like I don't know what you're doing in your. I need to see. Like, can you just live stream 24 hours one day just so I can see how you spend a day? Because I don't know where you're finding these hours. Maybe I'm just watching too much fucking anime.
That's
Uh,
that's it, dude. Like, I don't watch TV.
yeah,
That's the
that
truth. Like, I watch stuff with Sarah. She goes to bed around 10. So I work anywhere from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., depending on the day. From
Yeah.
7 until about 10 o'clock, Sarah and I hang out. We'll watch a few shows that we got, our movie. We'll cook dinner together, have quality time. She goes to bed at 10. I then, from 10 o'clock until about 12 or 1 a.m., will either edit video for the show, work on graphics, but more importantly, I play a lot of games in those windows in the evening. I use all my free time, and I'm saying that in a way of like, if I have time for me where I'm not sharing it with my wife or my family or my friends, I'm putting it into the show and the games. And that's what I do. Like, you watch a lot of sports, you love anime, you follow a lot of those things. Johnny has a full-blown fucking 10-year-old almost at this point. Him and
Right.
his wife do the same thing. I don't have any kids. My wife is 100% supportive of this show. She knows that this is how I recenter and escape life and do things and live and have a wonderful time. I used to do this with music. I'd fall in love with albums, but then I was always scouring for new music. I've even shared some stuff with you there, but
Mm-hmm.
ultimately I have a few websites I go to. I look for reviews, and I'm just kind of looking for, I've gotten my genres and your genres, more importantly, down to where I know, like, hey, I should be looking for things that we can stream or hang out. And we talked about this tonight when we were bowling. This show, which we don't average a ton of viewers live, we don't have a ton of listeners, which is a-okay, because this
Mm-hmm.
show is a tool for adult friendships. And we talk about that a lot.
Totally, it's an excuse. Like,
It's
it
an
is.
excuse.
If we didn't have this, especially when it comes to COVID times or post-COVID times or whatever the
Right.
fuck we're living in right now, it makes it very difficult for us to find time to go see each other in the real living world. Even though my new house is very much closer to your house than it was
Yeah.
before, we have the ability to do that. And, we saw each other tonight in person, so that's, we're making
Yeah. Yeah.
progress. But this show, to have an excuse to talk to two of my very good friends, maybe even
Mhm.
best friends, we'll see. I mean, Johnny. But
Half.
like having that excuse to see you once every 7 days, plus
Yep.
casual Mondays,
Yep.
sometimes casual Fridays, and then we also are recording our quick looks. It's a good reason to always be chatting with you and to have something to drive those conversations instead of just, hey, great weather this week. Like, yeah, fuck that. We
Yeah,
don't need
dude.
this talk. We have something to discuss, and I think that's a very valuable thing for that. And that's why I really like podcasting in general. It gives that
Sure.
opportunity for things.
I think you're kind of hitting on the head too. Like I do bring a lot of new stuff to the show because I'm trying to keep fuel here for us to have reasons to keep doing it. And if we had to like really analyze it, like it really just comes down to I'm kind of taking like this hibernation approach of like I want to have enough fat to get through the winter when it comes to stuff, and I want to make sure that we've got things that we can get
Right.
excited about and do. So I don't want you to beat yourself up over it. Like I love that you're playing things you like because
And
I
I appreciate you saying that, and I probably am a little hard on myself, but I do know that I would like to play some other games as well, and to have that more. I kind of pride myself on this balanced knowledge
sure.
of games and mechanics and things, and I like to pull from that as we talk. That's one of the reasons that somebody like Jeff Gersman is somebody I really look up to. Dude just has a vault of knowledge and it's
Yeah.
on at any one time when he needs to talk about a game. He can make allusions to other things. He can make nice comparisons. He can talk about things in a really intelligent way because he has that that depth of knowledge, and that's something I would like to have to be able to speak intelligently as we do. And hopefully, I generally have that.
100%. I
But
mean,
yeah,
you like Jeff for those reasons. One of the things that like I love that X Giant Bomb Next Lander guys do is they'll talk about the same game for weeks. And they'll give these running updates like, hey, we're all playing, like they're talking about Grounded right now.
hmm
And there's not this pressure that they have of like always talking about new things, but they're giving weekly updates on what they're enjoying or what they're not after, hey, I put 15 hours in, I'm kind of hitting a wall. Or, hey, I put 15 hours in, it finally clicks. Like, it's cool to hear the longevity of games. And I really appreciate you bringing that because, yeah, things are new. It's hard to keep up with, but there's things that like we don't talk in depth until game of the year about shit. And there's probably people who listen to us that are playing some of these games that are like, fuck, that spoiler just happened and that was awesome. I want to know what these guys think about that because they talked about enjoying the game, but they
hmm
don't really get the minutia and the ins and outs until we spoil the shit out of it on either a deep dive or game of the year. So I
and some games
appreciate
lend themselves better to that than others. Like I don't
totally
think Super Wars 30 is a very good game to talk about every week because it's kind of just a lot of the same thing. Live Alive, I think, is a great game to talk about
sure.
different weeks.
It's
Is
so
that
different.
kind of seven different games in one as
It's
you
an
play it?
anthology, right? Like almost like an anthology.
There's always kind of something new to talk about. Even something like Xenoblade Chronicles 3, I imagine you're going to new places, you're
Yeah.
unlocking new abilities and new characters, and that is probably something that you could talk about for a number of weeks and still have a lot of new and interesting things to say. That's all to say. I think the other thing is that I look at my list. I keep a list of all the games that I've played for in a given year, just
Yeah.
as
Same.
organization for Game of the Year, as a way to look back and see the games that I've played. And looking back at the games that I played in 2021 versus the number of games I played in 2022, I feel like there's a lot less in the 2022 bucket, and certainly a lot less of the games that came out this year and weren't just games I tried that were from previous years. So it's something I want to continue to work on, but I appreciate what you said, and I will try not to beat myself up. In fact, next year I've got some plans that
Cool.
might potentially help with this. We'll see. We'll see.
The
But
other thing too, man, like you're gonna have a PC, and that opens up a
then I'm
lot of
fucked.
possibility. Then you're fucked because then you're only gonna be playing ROM hacks. So then you know,
Well, I'm already only playing ROM hacks, but
fair.
now I can play weird other extra PC stuff. Like there's okay, so you know how much I like Pokemon ROM hacks, and I have a great
Oh
time with
yeah,
Pokemon.
yeah,
There's a whole other genre of Pokemon fan games, which are different than ROM hacks because they're completely ground up
naturally.
games that are made, but they feel like ROM hacks in that they are, hey, we're taking kind of that top down, fire red Pokemon style, but we built this ourselves and we can put on different mechanics and do some different things with that. Some of those games sound fucking wild, and I've downloaded a bunch of them. I just can't play them because they're exe files, and I'm on a MacBook Pro. So
See,
once I have something that can play these things, yeah, you're right. It's probably just over for me.
well, the
There's
other cool thing there is I've been doing this a little bit with this big honking thing. Um,
sure.
this has on a same network in your house. You can just remote play. So then you've got that whole piece of it. We should have a category for Game of the Year this year that is most out Nintendoing Nintendo, where it could be somebody who made a better Pokemon, it could be a better Goldeneye, it could be a better Star Fox, and we talk a little bit about the games that we've enjoyed and throw a little salt in the wound. But all
That
that
could
to
be
be
fun.
said, video games continue to be good, and if you are listening to our show and you're like, these guys just talk about a bunch of new shit. I don't know how they do it, how they afford it, whatever it may be. Game Pass has helped out a lot there. I'll call that out. But the other piece of it is you should play what you dig. And it's okay to be a 1 game, 2 game, 20 game person a year. You should just play video games. I
Like
know.
the idea that somebody can say, "Oh, I'm just picking up." Yeah, it's not the Madden and Call of Duty player that I'm really talking about. I'm talking about like the guy who's I guess like a Grand Theft Auto 5, but like somebody who goes and like I play this series.
Yeah, this is what
Even
I play.
like the Elder Scrolls, which I don't like those games.
Yep.
But I still am jealous of the people who are like, this is my game. I'm going to play this for 500,
Yep.
600, 800 hours. And I'm going to do a bunch of mod stuff. And I'm just going to get really into this scene.
Yep.
And I'm just not that guy. I like to dabble. I like to
Yeah,
jump
for
around
sure.
and see a lot of things. But I also want to have depth to that same breadth, which means it's just so much. It's so much stuff at some point. Anyway, that's a long way of saying I only played 2 games this
That's
week.
cool though.
Neither of them are really that much to say since I've already talked about them before. Bobby, you have a handful of games here that are either brand new or haven't been talked about on the podcast before or not for a while. So I'd really like to hear what you've been playing this last week.
I went back to Cyberpunk 2077. A lot
You
of
didn't even
people,
see the anime. What the fuck?
yeah, Johnny and Jason, Jason watched all the anime, loved it, and he's been playing a shit ton of this because of that. Johnny and I had this morbid curiosity because I never finished the story. I want to call that out. I never finished Cyberpunk. I got basically till the end, but I
Mhm.
just got fed up. I was caught up in the zeitgeist of like shitting on the game because it was pretty busted when it came out. At the time, I had what I consider to be a PC capable of running that game. It didn't really perform to my liking. They've put a lot of work into the game, and I'm happy to report that I started a brand new playthrough, and it's been, for the most part, outside of like maybe one small hiccup, very bug free. It runs great. The game feels like it should have came out now versus 2 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, my problems still persist. I think the story is pretty sloppy. I have hesitation with, ultimately they give you this skill tree that you can unlock netrunner abilities. You can do some really cool builds in that sense, but it all really comes down to just having a good equipped gun is the best thing you can do in the game.
Yeah.
And that's a bummer. But all that to be said, this is just a very quick way of saying, if you've never played Cyberpunk, this is probably the time to go and check it out. Watch that anime. Like, even as somebody who's not thoroughly into anime, it looks cool. It's gotten a lot of people playing. I mean, like, this game has done gangbusters on Steam for weeks now since that anime came out. And I think that they've got the next gen version. So if you have a PlayStation and Xbox, you can play a higher frame rate, better graphics. it's been a cool game to just walk around in that world. I feel it's pretty shallow overall, but mechanically, it's not the best shooter I've played. It's competent. It honestly feels like a Bethesda game, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. It feels very much like it's framed up like a Fallout. The way that you interact with people, the way that you build your character out, it just feels like one of those games. So Cyberpunk 2077. I've played a little bit on the Steam Deck. I mostly played on my computer. It looks great. The DirectX ray tracing stuff is good. All that to be said, I am happy because game development's hard. That they were committed to making this thing right, and people are finding ways to enjoy it. I think that's cool. And we'll talk more about CD Project Red.
Right. I can vouch for the anime. I watched it all in one night.
It's good, right?
It's like 10, maybe 11 episodes. I had a really good time with it. Yeah. I mean, I've enjoyed Studio Trigger's work in the past. And I think this was one of their, I don't want to say mature. It's still very, it still can be very immature Trigger sometimes, but certainly more grown up than some of their previous efforts. But the quality of animation is still top notch. In fact, it's the best it's ever been, and it is exciting. And it did give me that feeling. Maybe I should check back in on Night City.
Yeah.
I when I played it, it was on the PS4, and that was maybe the worst way to play it at the
Ooh, it was
time.
rough.
And so I did not have a very good time playing that game. I also just was not a fan of the mechanics and the way to build the character. I didn't find guns that I thought felt good. I wasn't really getting the net runner stuff to
Right.
work the way I wanted to, and I just ended up having a pretty poor time with that game all around. Um, but it is something that I still think about a lot,
Yeah.
and it's something I wouldn't mind going back to. It's just hard to justify that time, even if it's still on my mind. So
I did
that's kind of a low priority thing for maybe way down the line, but it is something that I'm continuing to think about.
I did find online. So they did add in like items from the anime, not necessarily characters, but there's like their bikes, jackets, weapons.
Sure.
People though, because the internet's amazing, have made builds that are supposed to be like,
Oh,
hey, this is this character from the
sure.
if you want more of like this brawler, I guess it's like kind of a bigger guy in the anime.
Hmm.
If you want that kind of street brawler build, whatever his name was, like here's his build, here's how you can get some of those skills and attributes, which I mean that's fun. Like that's all headcanon shit. So all that's a very long-winded way of saying it's maybe safe to go back to the game. If you've played it before, the game is still that game, but it runs a lot better.
I
Uh,
still wanted to find the gun that either shoots people in the head or shoots people in the nuts, and you can choose. You
Skippy.
choose when you. Yeah, I still want to find Skippy at some point.
Skippy's pretty good.
I bet so.
Chase, I got to check out. There's a game that I saw being hyped up on TikTok. Didn't know a lot about it. I'm like, that looks slick. Went and found out that they were taking signups on Steam for a playtest. I got picked to do it on the weekend. I played a few rounds of the finals alpha preview. This is a
I,
game coming out from Embark Studios. You maybe have heard about them. They've got a game called Arc Raiders that was teased at one of the game shows. Looked really slick. This kind of came out of nowhere. Same studio. This is a competitive shooter that is first person. I think it's teams of 3 or 4, but it's based off of a game show. And when I say game show, the whole thing is more about money heist, and you're stealing money from teams, and it's more extraction based. As you kill people, they burst into coins, just like in Scott Pilgrim, which is really fucking cool.
all right.
Um, there are predetermined characters in this that range from like heavy, medium to light. They all have unique abilities. The one thing I will call out for this game is that it is crazy, just absolutely crazy. The physics on what you can do in environments, on destroying them. And so you might come into a wall. And on the other side is this like ATM that people are doing kind of a timed extraction from. You can
Mm-hmm.
blow the fucking wall up. The heavy one of his abilities is that if you're on the roof of a building, he will like jump in the air and ground pound through the floors to the bottom level, and you're like guarding something, and all of a sudden the wall just explodes and people are stealing this from you. I'm not super competitive. This game has a ton of style. It looks gorgeous, and I like the mechanics a whole lot in it. I think Arc Raiders will probably end up being more my tempo, but this is really cool. I don't know when it's coming out. They're doing pre-alpha footage on Steam, but they have an alpha preview that you can play. It's over right now. The window's closed on it, but it's called The Finals. It looks cool. I'm curious to see where it goes.
Yeah, the I know the other game, the Arc Raiders. That one, it's kind of like a free to play Monster Hunter, except the monsters are big alien robots. I really like a lot of the design stuff I've seen in there, especially in like the UI and art direction
Yep.
stuff. Um, I We haven't heard a lot about that game
It was supposed to
recently.
come out this year. I know, and that's why I'm so surprised by the finals. Because Embark, I know it's a studio made up of a lot of like prior devs. I don't think it's very big. Arc Raiders has been kind of radio silence, and now all of a sudden they've got this buzz coming from the finals, which it would probably be slotted into like an Apex, Fortnite, that type of like crowd will be checking this out. It's different enough, but I don't know what's going on with Arc Raiders. That's the game that I'm more excited for. I just haven't heard anything.
Sure.
So that's the finals. Pretty cool. Definitely worth checking out. The other game I've been playing just hit Game Pass. I was a dummy. I thought this came out this year. It actually came out September 2021. It's called Medieval Dynasty. This game is made by Render Cube. I don't know a lot about what they've done. I will come out and say it. I dig a lot of what this game's doing. This is a survival crafting game, which I'm going to love, set in a
Oh,
medieval dynasty.
scrap.
Um, it's what's cool about this though is your family's pretty much passed away. You come into a town with somebody that knew either your dad or your uncle, and they're like, "Hey, the way that we see it, your family, you can have the plot of land that was owned by your family. You can build a farm. You can do whatever you want. Go and do it." So you go and you start to punch trees, break trees, get stones, and you build a house. From there, you start to unlock skills and abilities from cooking to crafting. And the whole concept of this game is that you essentially will be able to recruit NPCs to come back into your community and build a full functioning town. That's really cool in one of these games. And so, like, you can bring people back into the area. You can start to establish, I need a blacksmith. I need more of a farmer.
When you
Um,
so when you say full functioning, do you mean like automation? Is this, hey, you're getting people to do stuff in the town, or is
I
it more
think
just
that's the case. I haven't gotten too deep into that yet, but from what I can tell, that's kind of the ultimate thing that you're getting towards. Is just like this is a society that functions and does its thing. There is some light combat. I got killed by a bull, which wasn't great, but you can
sure?
craft spears that you can throw and hunt with. It's got a pretty robust like radial menu that it uses for different things from crafting to your inventory. It looks really good. You can play in first person or third person. There's no voice dialogue with it, so it's all written. But this just hit Game Pass for cloud, PC, and console. It's at a very positive rating on Steam with over almost 23,000 reviews. Like people are really into it. It's a good one of these games. I would probably play more of this if it was this year, and I'd probably spend a lot more time with it. But it's just one of those things where right now I've got a bunch of stuff I'm still polishing up from September into October, and then November hits hard. So, as much as I like it, I probably won't spend as much time with it right now, but I think it's really well done. I've enjoyed everything that's been talking about. Really cool thing there. And the last game, so at the time of this, let's see, today's the 12th, Thursday the 13th. If you're listening to this show, you can play this game. If you're watching this, PGA 2K23 is coming out on October 14th. If you purchase the deluxe or ultimate version of the game, so there's like the game's $60. They've got a $99 version that comes with a bunch of pre-order bonuses, in-game currency, but also an early unlocked where you can play it as October 11th. But if you don't want to buy that and just the standard, you can play it on Friday the 14th. PGA 2K23 is out. This is the new heavy golf sim. This is the continuation from HB Studios. They've been doing several years now of the 2K series golf games. They recently, I think it was 2021, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 2020, 2021 probably though, they got access to the PGA license, where before that, they built a solid ass golf game with just, they built their own golf courses, but now you can play like TPC Sawgrass. You can play a lot of those things that you would, if you played any of the Tiger Woods games in the past, will feel familiar. Maybe because Tiger Woods is on the cover of this game, which is wild to see. Tiger Woods playable. Michael Jordan pre-order bonus. You can play golf as Michael Jordan, which is really dumb and silly.
I mean, I know he plays golf, but he's not a golfer.
No.
He also wasn't a baseball player, but he played some baseball.
I am here to tell you that I think this is one of the best modern golf games I've played. And it has...
I mean, there aren't many bad golf games, especially these. I know we had our issues with the story mode of Mario Kart Super Rush, or Mario Golf Super Rush. Yep. But the mechanics of just playing golf, I think were top notch in that game. Easy come, easy golf, or clap hands golf, whatever you wanted to call it. Fantastic mechanics.
Yeah.
Golf Story we've talked about in the past, just even smaller stuff like that. But even on the other end, and I don't know, I know a bunch of licenses have changed hands at these points. But so EA had a golf game that was Tiger Woods, and then that went to that did some different things. K1 is now this one that it has taken kind of the PGA license. And then who made the golf club? Didn't they get bought by somebody and they're like, that's now a more official thing as well?
I might be wrong here. I think that's with HB Studios. I think
that's what these guys are.
Yeah, I think that they were the golf club and then they became the 2K series.
Okay, I'm gonna look that up real quick while you're But yeah, tell me more about 2K23.
So they've introduced a few things here that I think really work really well. One, you can create your own golfer, which is a lot of fun, and you can start a career mode. You start through various tournaments. This has PvP. It has also co-op. You can do some really cool character progression. They've got a full-blown skill tree, and the way that they do it, I think this is really fucking neat. So you can start to dump points into your different clubs. And so let's say that you got a skill point after you leveled up your character. You can then go and put that into your driver. And they might have an activation bonus. So like, okay, you're going to get more loft time or more air control on the ball when you hit it. The way that you activate it, you have to miss your fairway from teeing off 2 times in a row. And if you do that, you activate this bonus, but as soon as you get back on target, you lose that bonus. So it's a really cool triggering, but also turning off. That's a new thing that they've done, which I think is great. They've also got these, so they got a full pro shop where you can buy and upgrade your clubs, but they've got these fittings that you can get. And I unlocked one when I leveled up for putting. And it was cool because you pay like $90 in-game currency, and you can then add this attachment to your putters that will add a little bit of weight to your putter, so it might affect your swing, but the path that you get that your ball travels on, it increases that attribute by like 6 or 7 points. And so you unlock these attachments. So think of it like if you had a gun and a shooter, it could be a scope, a muzzle, it could be a stock. But you're unlocking these attachments, which is crazy.
Fucking red dot sight on your putter.
I have a red dot sight pitching wedge. That shit's really cool. And the other thing that they've added into this is they have a partnership with Topgolf. So they have a whole mode. So think of like a home run derby in a baseball game. You've got a Topgolf competitive way to play this.
Doesn't that seem a little silly in that like Topgolf was kind of like a more video gamey way of playing golf in real life?
Yeah.
And now what if we turned that into the video game of real golf? What are we doing?
It's silly. what I will say is they've also introduced a new mechanic. So for several years now, golfing simulators have made you do a swing stick mechanic. So that means that the timing of going backwards, the timing of going forwards on your joystick
The Dark Ages
also,
is what you're saying.
yeah, they also will penalize you if you slice it up left or right. So you have to be pretty accurate with it. You can calibrate that, but they added in the 3-click system, the traditional old
Hell yeah.
school method, which I know you're a fan of, and a lot of people are. Chase,
It's the right way. It's the right way to do things. EA, you know, I'm sorry. I don't want to go off too much of a tangent, but the 360 era, I think EA really fucked us all up with the idea of the hit stick, and then in Fight Night Round 3, the way that you throw your punches with that, and just every single fucking
oh
sports
yeah,
game have had to have the right stick movement, and like, oh, it's analog, doesn't it feel just like doing the thing? And like, no, I want the abstraction where I can get more precision on what I'm doing, especially when it comes to something like golf. When it kind of worked in Fight Night,
yeah,
but and I guess it works in something like Madden with like a hit stick. But when you start fucking around with NBA Street and turn your button combo moves into right stick movement bullshit, man, it really fucked us up for a while now. So I'm glad we're kind of moving back. The pendulum is kind of moving back to, hey, you have the option to use buttons if you like the buttons.
yeah. So for those of
Tell me
you
why I like the buttons though, Bobby.
who
Why
are
am I not in this
if
one?
you're uninitiated, the 3-click system is usually in a horizontal bar where, excuse me, it'll let you press it once. It starts to fill up a power gauge. You click it to set your power, and then you bring it back to basically initiate your swing precision. That's kind of how this works.
Mm-hmm.
This one is a circle.
Start, power, accuracy.
Yep. This whole also the swing stick again, timing, accuracy, and power are there with like you can do a half swing, all that fun stuff.
Right.
This is a circle that you don't tap the first initial start, you're holding. And as you're holding it, a red circle or a different color circle is growing outwards of the circle. And
Mm-hmm.
the outer, because this also has the here's 100%, but if you swing into the red, you can overpower your swing. It has the same thing. The outer ring of the circle is red. You are holding that to charge up your swing. You release it to set your power. And then immediately at the top of your circle and the bottom, there are 2 bright green wedges. And you have 2 sticks that one starts to go like a clock. And you need to hit that right away to be in that green wedge. That's going to be the backswing accuracy. And then the other, as soon as you set it, the other stick starts to go, and then you just set at the bottom. And when you do that, you've got your power, your accuracy, and you swing. It is the most sim version of a 3-click system I've seen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people who are expecting a 3-click system will be like, that's my shit. But I think people, if they leaned into it, would be like, okay, conceptually it's the same. It's cool. It's
Yeah,
here.
it's something you can get used to. It's still digital in that it is buttons instead of trying to use analog sticks. I'm really interested to see it in motion.
Yeah.
And I know that we're going to do a quick look of that, and we're probably also going to stream that at least once at some point. So I look forward to seeing that live.
Yeah. So I'm thrilled. This is going to be kind of my what you've been using Easy Come Easy Golf for. It's just a fun thing to do in between the waves. It's a very relaxing thing. But PGA 2K23,
And
uh,
if I run out of easy come easy golf, then I'll be probably looking for another golf game. So I could totally see myself picking this up. I've never played a sim golf game before. It's always been Mario or Golf Story or now the clap hands kind of stuff, hot shots, everybody's golf, that kind of stuff. But if it's not too simmy, I mean, Mario Golf, especially this last entry, was too much in the other direction. There's too much bullshit on the courses. Golf Story, I had that issue with too. You eventually got to courses where everything's got fucking moles on it or something, and it felt like it's a mini game more than it is golf. But
Right.
I also don't think I'm looking for full sim. I don't want to be thinking about the grain of the grass
Yeah,
as
it's not anything
like
more. It's really not more than like what Mario is there. We're
I
gonna we're
mean,
gonna quit.
if it's the topographical map, then that's what I'm all for. I want to see those dots move on the squares so I know what the what the steepness of the drops are in the in the gradient of the
For sure.
grass.
We're gonna check it out on Friday night, and then we're gonna quick look at this weekend. We'll probably post that in a few weeks. But if you want to see more of this, and you're listening to this on Friday the 14th, come back to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/casual hour. Chase, with Johnny being out, would you be up for taking us through these news stories?
Sure, I can rip through these relatively quickly, I imagine. First, we got to pour one out. There's still too much tea for me to actually pour this out, but
Fair.
um, so long to our dear departed brother, the Stadia.
Man.
Uh, yeah, you guys have probably seen this. It was announced at least a week ago, maybe a couple weeks ago. Um, yeah, Google is shutting Stadia down. They're going to refund all Stadia purchases, which seems kind of wild to me. Hardware, software, DLC, any of that stuff. They say that that most, if not all, of the members of the Stadia team will be working in some other capacity at Google. They're going to try to find other departments for them to go into. Um, but it's yeah, I mean it's gonna stay live until January 18th of 2023, so relatively soon this thing's gonna be all shut down. I think maybe the 3DS eShop stays alive longer than Stadia does. It's I'm of a couple minds of this. On one hand, I very much feel some vindication. I think when we first talked about Stadia, I was the one who was the stick in the mud going, Google shuts down all of their shit if it's not immediately successful. And I still have some hangups about cloud gaming and wonder what happens when, these things shut down and people are hung out to dry. At the very least, like we said, Google is not completely hanging you out to dry. They are going to give some refunds for these things. Um, but on the other hand, I think it's kind of disappointing. This is, by all accounts, pretty solid technology. It worked.
Yep.
It worked really pretty well,
Yeah.
and I think it's more on Google for not marketing this correctly, not finding the right audience, not continuing to invest in the games. Um, there were very few times in the grand scheme of things where we did our monthly previews where we mentioned games on Stadia. It was like maybe once a month, and that's not to say we covered every single thing that was coming to Stadia, but Stadia support was not like the support you'd see on an Xbox or a PlayStation, and certainly not the
Yeah.
PC. And I think that just set it up for failure in a way that is disappointing. I don't think it had to go down like that. And my hope is that Google will, and I'm sure this is the case, that Google will continue to shop around this technology to other people, whether this is something that gets attached to Game Pass at some point,
Right.
whether they can license it out to Sony in some way. I know Sony had Gaikai at one point. So there are places that kind of work with some of this stuff. Like maybe that PlayStation Now service could be enhanced by what Stadia brings. Maybe Nintendo can find a
Totally.
source, or maybe somebody that we haven't even thought of. Maybe Nvidia with like their Shield stuff, and I'm sure there's lots of things that you can do with this technology, and it's great that it works, but
Man,
it's
here's what it comes down to for me. They were charging a premium to
yeah.
get into the ecosystem. And then they were basically saying, you need to buy the games too. I don't think they were in a position to do this, but you all know I like Game Pass. I'm not trying to be biased here, but you pay
But
a
you are
monthly
to
fee.
do this. Like what you're alluding to. You're fucking Google. You've got more money than
Well,
God.
yeah,
You can afford to sell these systems at a loss. You can afford to make a subscription service that is just really cheap, like Game Pass, and give people a
they
really
shouldn't
great.
have to buy the game after buying into the service. It should have been Amazon had that figured out. Microsoft has it figured out. I really believe that that was the thing for somebody. Like if I was going to use this, wait, hang on, I got to buy this game and it's tied to Google. That
Mhm.
means that I can't play this with my friends. But if they were to say like, hey, pay us $10 a month, drop off when you want to, your saves will be in our cloud. You can plug this into YouTube, all that shit's there. But instead they said pay us this much and then pay $50, $60 per game to play it on this thing that you don't get to do unless there's like, which I think crossplay on Stadia was fucked up, but you don't get to play it. And then now the other thing that's happening is you've got people who are like, hey, hang on a second. I've got thousands of hours tied into Red Dead Redemption. I've got thousands of hours tied into Assassin's Creed. Ubisoft, they're basically saying, hey, we're just going to like come over here for a second. Forget Stadia. You had our games, you bought them on Stadia. We're just going to give you a PC copy. Your saves, we got them in our cloud. You're good to go. If you ever have a means to play it, you've got to copy this game on Ubisoft. They're trying.
I think the biggest bummer here is when Google kind of half attempted to make this a thing. They bought some studios, they got some good talent in there, and now that talent is uh, not exactly scattered to the wind because it sounds like Google's going to try to find some other stuff. But like those people are here to make games, to make game
Right.
hardware. And now Google's saying, well, you know, that didn't really work. We're going to shut it down. We'll find some other places in other departments. Can you imagine? Wasn't Jade Raymond part of Stadia at some point?
Yep.
Like, what a bummer it is for a person who's made games her whole life to now be working. I don't know, like some part of search for Google or whatever. That like that's not like that person wants to make some fucking games and
Right.
just Google doesn't have a games division anymore to do that with. So your choices are keep a job at Google or go out and try to find another thing. And I think that's the biggest bummer to me is the waste of time for these developers who you know if Stadia wasn't around or Google had really just completely half-assed everything and didn't buy these developers, what could they have been making instead of wasting their time at Google for a service that's just going to shut down now?
I
So
think
that
I have to think these people are going to bounce back in a big way. Like not with Google, but I think that they will.
absolutely, and like you said, there are other services. I don't want to say Amazon is something that we should put on a pedestal, but that Luna stuff does seem like it's doing. I mean, certainly better than Stadia, but it seems like it has some more of a um, like more of a driving force behind it than Stadia did. Stadia just felt rudderless for like as soon as it came out, launched way before it should have, didn't have everything figured out when it did come out, and then just kind of just wet fish. Like
Yeah, dude.
it just flopped around until they finally said, okay, I guess we'll put a bullet in this thing. Really, really sad
Yeah,
time.
it's a bummer, but nobody's really surprised.
No.
Um, and Chase, I think this next story reiterates cloud gaming is not going away, even without Stadia.
Yeah, yeah. So, Logitech has announced a new handheld console that is focused solely on cloud gaming. It is called the Logitech G Cloud. It's a handheld service that focuses on, or it's a handheld that focuses primarily on cloud gaming services like Xbox Cloud Gaming and NVIDIA GeForce Now. Um, I mean, the thing looks very similar to a Nintendo Switch or a Steam Deck, kind of somewhere in the middle of that. The promotional image they have has Deathloop on the screen, so we'll see. But it's got this article here from TechCrunch says, but the device philosophy differs drastically from other handheld consoles The Logitech G Cloud runs on Android and features deep integrations with Xbox Cloud Gaming and NVIDIA GeForce Now. And Logitech has worked with Tencent to co-develop the launcher, run usability tests, and optimize how you can pause games and move them to the background, but it remains a true Android device with Google Play. So it can do all of these cloud things. It also, it's also an Android device, so you're going to be able to hack it however you want to
Right.
build stuff in those kinds of Android devices. Um, what do you think about this, Bobby? What's you have a Switch, you have a Steam Deck, you have an Android device that is capable of playing some ROMs. Is this something that appeals to you in any way? Where do you think this would fit into your handheld lifestyle?
It just doesn't anymore. There are a few things to call out here. So the cost, introductory price $299, going to go up to $349. You're now at the cost of a Switch. You're $50 shy of a Steam Deck.
Yeah.
I like the NVIDIA service. I think Microsoft Cloud Gaming is some of the best. Android has a lot of flexibility to it. This device that does not have capabilities, it does not have a storefront, it doesn't have any of those things, that is based on you having an internet connection that is good to have an experience here, is a big price to ask, knowing that I could either buy a Switch and have some of the best stuff Nintendo's done in a long time with some very sound physical hardware that you can take with you, but for $50 more than that, I can get a handheld PC that is only getting better with each update and the library expanding. So I think it's a tough go because I also can do all that. So like I would say in comparison to the Switch, my Steam Deck, I can make that thing whatever I want it to be, including a tool for all these streaming services. But then I can also take it on a plane and play games that are downloaded, which is on a handheld, you should not be tethered to internet only, in my opinion.
I don't think this is. I think it does have some offline capabilities, but when you are pushing the cloud services, I agree. I think that's a weird thing to push with a handheld. That's not like you're not always going to have access to your cloud services unless this thing has some kind of other network that it's doing itself. Like it makes me think back to the Vita. When the Vita first launched, there was a 3G option to have have your fucking device have this constant internet connection like a phone would. And they dropped it pretty soon after because nobody really wanted it or used it. uh, and I feel a similar thing here. If I want to play, if I'm going to be tethered to using cloud gaming for the majority of this thing, or for the main features of this thing, that means I'm going to have to be home.
Right.
And if I'm home, then I'm probably just going to play my home consoles or a PC. Even my Switch stays pretty much docked
Yeah.
when I'm home. The nice part about the Switch is that if I am going somewhere, I can take it with me, and I could play it on the go. But it's more that it has that portability factor. When I do take it somewhere, I can plug it in, or play it in bed in a hotel room and then plug it in to charge it at night. Like that's the nice part to me, and I don't see a device like this filling that same purpose.
Right.
And on a more personal note, I'm sure there's OSs and other wrappers and things that you can put on these devices that make them feel great. But my experience with Android-based devices has been not great.
Yeah.
I find them to be really archaic feeling, and just really unnecessarily complex. I don't find it to be a fun, easy experience, and it pushes me to go to other devices for that kind of stuff instead. Now, I will say, Logitech, they make hardware. They are a hardware maker who has done many
I'm
things.
wearing
My
them.
gaming headsets, yeah, they do plenty of stuff. I'm sure the build quality of this thing is going to be good. It's got Microsoft style buttons to it. I'm sure they made this thing to play games well. I just don't. I don't know if I'm the right target audience, and I honestly don't really understand the target audience for a device like this. So
If the
we're
rumored, so there's a rumor it's not going to be an HDMI stick, but more of like an Apple TV puck. Microsoft is making a device like the Google Chromecast, the Apple TV, that you plug into an HDMI port and power on your television or your monitor, and you've got an xCloud streaming device that you can pair a controller up to. I have moved from being a console gamer downstairs of my house in my family room to now being up here where I'm talking to you all live from with a great gaming setup. But if I would absolutely hook one of the, if they had like a $50 to $100 box that I could just put behind my TV and be like, yeah, I can chill on the couch and play Grounded or whatever it is, you know. I
Mhm.
think that would be, I would probably be more into that, because the other piece here is that they don't talk about docking, at least that I could see this device to where you could hook it up. Maybe I'm missing it. Maybe that's there, but you could hook it up to your TV and stream stuff that way. So all that to be said, it's interesting to see all these things. And what I will call out as somebody who has no knowledge here,
Yeah.
sure seems like a bad time for Sony to double down on VR instead of bringing back the Vita, considering everybody's doing something that the Vita was really pioneering almost 10 years ago.
I had to recently. I had a friend who was asking me about uh, things that could run ROMs.
Yeah.
And he was asking me specifically about my analog pocket, and so I was telling him a little bit about that. He was talking about a couple of these other Android based devices, and I was talking to him about how my experience has been with those kind of devices. And I mentioned, because he really wanted to play PlayStation games, I was like, if you want to play PlayStation games, you might want to look into getting either a PSP, which you can hack and it just plays. It has the emulators built into that. They built the emulators into the fucking system so it can play the PlayStation games. It's a fucking PlayStation,
Right.
or a Vita, which is, again, functionally the same thing in that instance. And also, you wouldn't even have to hack it. You can just download those things. Um, and so I actually had to take out my Vita because I wanted to just show him form factor stuff and show him how things felt.
Yeah.
And as soon as I pulled out that Vita, I was like, God damn, this
Dude,
thing feels so fucking good. It's just one of the best looking, best feeling systems I've ever come across.
and people are hungry, man. Like Backbone, who makes a I was going to call that out. Like, if you have a
Mm-hmm.
phone, which I would assume most of you listening to the show have a phone, you
Mm-hmm.
can buy a Backbone controller for $100 and get a cloud streamer. There's a PlayStation license one of those. People are hungry for PlayStation Remote Play. They're hungry for PS Now and all that shit being here. And it just seems like Sony is doubling down on VR, which I enjoy VR, but read the room, Sony. People are fucking hungry for handhelds.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a weird time. VR kind of feels like it came and went,
Yep.
and it's still kind of fighting around, but I just don't hear people talk about it, and I feel like you just have this subset of rich sickos who are the ones who bought these things, and now they're just evangelists,
Yep.
and it hasn't the prices for these things haven't come down enough. The software for these things haven't been exciting enough to get anybody who's not already in that early adopter enthusiast set to give it a shot. I went over to your place. I played VR that one time. I played some Tetris Effect. I played Astrobot, and I played Super Hot VR. Fucking rules.
Yep.
Um, I had a good time with all those games, but it's a it's a dalliance. It's a temporary thing. It's a once in a while thing, um, but it's not the way I want to play games.
Dude, we were talking about Microsoft. They announced yesterday that Xbox Cloud Gaming, they partnered with Meta, and Xbox Cloud Gaming is coming to the Meta Quest.
Well, also, Bobby, Meta has legs now, or is about to have legs. Uh,
That your $1,500 Meta Pro
it's so ridiculous watching Facebook flail around and try to throw as much money as they can at VR that looks like fucking garbage to get into a metaverse that is fucking stupid that nobody wants. Anyway, let's keep moving on. E3's back, Bobby, or it will be back, I guess.
In person.
Yeah. So June
Yep.
2023, we'll be getting E3. They took what did they take a couple of years off of
Yeah.
that? 2019 was the last one, so a handful of years. So they run from June 13th to June 16th. The ESA and Reed Pop, the people behind PAX, people behind Comic Con these days. I know New York Comic Con just happened. I guess full disclosure, friend of the show, Piers Corshane works at Reed Pop. Not that he tells us fucking shit about what
Yeah.
goes on there. But I guess we technically have a friend who's got some skin in the game here. But they went out. Uh, I don't. Did they buy E3 exactly, or did they license it or partner with it? I'm not exactly
I
sure
think
how
it's a
that
partnership.
went down. But Reed Pop is now, the people who are going to be running PAX, which is probably or running E3, which is probably the right call. E3 has had some issues in 2019 and earlier when it was coming out, and Reed Pop at the very least seem like they know what the fuck they're doing when you're making live events.
Right.
But it's coming back to the Los Angeles Convention Center, and there will be business days and gamer days. So on business days, that goes from June 13th to the 15th, and that is trying to go back to what E3 used to be, which is a trade show. That's where you get your GameStop managers to go in and try games and see how many copies of things they want to buy. I'm sure actually the trade show part of it has evolved past that at this point. But more what E3 was. Hey, you got to have a reason to come into this thing. You can't just come in and be a looky loo. But then after that, there will be gamer days for June 15th and 16th. It's in a separate hall from the business side, and that's going to be more, I would imagine, more like a PAX, more like a hey, this is absolutely a public facing show. We're here to show you some games that are probably in further along states than the vertical slice demos that you sometimes hear and see hear about and see in the kind of more business trade show focused stuff that E3 was before. A lot more like closed door meetings that they talk about.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
really curious here.
yeah, I mean, E3 to me has uh, we went from like when E3 was something that you read about in the magazines or
Yeah.
even when you had G4 at the show and was showing off stuff there. E3 felt much more like a big event of what these are just where they announce all the games and it's really cool to see like there's so many games and you just hear people talking about what they saw on the show floor and and then I think it's really transitioned to become more about the press conferences and for
Agreed.
time up to now and probably continuing on the press conferences are really what feels like E3 and then the actual show floor well that's just the stuff they announced or probably stuff that's further along that we've already known about for a while the cool stuff the announcements the surprise the pageantry that is all stuff that you get from the press conferences and even those press conferences have gotten further and further away from E3 proper. You have Nintendo doing their own thing with Nintendo Direct. You have
100%.
EA who was in a different hall. You have Bethesda and Microsoft who are kind of Sony has started doing its own thing more recently with State of Play. It's become less dependent on what E3 is. We just collectively call it E3, and then you have Jeff Keighley who's doing his own thing, which also again feels like hey, what people want right now is just a big glitzy show that announces hot new games and big surprises, and we don't need what E3 was. Maybe the business side still needs that for whatever they do, but um, the thing that I come to E3 for is no longer what E3 really is or really needs to be, and it's odd. It's odd because E3 was such a big deal, and now it's just kind of not. Hopefully this works. Hopefully they get this. They find that audience that needs this, and hopefully it can be a really cool show. But from what I need out of E3, I just don't feel like that's what this is anymore.
Hey, time will tell. We'll be here to report as more happens, but it's fucking wild, as you called out, to see this happening. Almost as wild as this next story.
Yeah, we're gonna finish. This is our final story for the night, and that is that CD Project Red. We talked about Cyberpunk earlier. They kind of out of nowhere, just like, oh yeah, here's like all the stuff we're gonna be working on for the next, I don't know, bajillion years.
Yeah.
They announced a handful of things here. A few things on the Witcher side. There is a game. Is it a game or is it just a code name? I think it's just a code name.
Yeah.
Syria.
Yep.
That is being made not by CD Projekt Red, but by another team that's called Molasses Flood, which sounds gross if you ask me.
Yeah.
But it's going to be something in the Witcher universe. In addition to that, there is also going to be a new Witcher trilogy by CD Projekt Red, which I guess I guess it's The Witcher. You can announce a new trilogy, but that just sounds like, why would you announce that many games? Just tell us you're making one new Witcher game. What are you doing?
I think
Go for it.
the other piece of this is, like, shortly after this information, the long running CEO stepped down.
Mm.
And I'm wondering if this is them kind of being like, hey, we've got all this shit either in active development or we are developing it. By the way, shareholders, our CEO, he's stepping down. You know, the guy that was overseeing when the whole Cyberpunk debacle happened, he's no longer here. But Cyberpunk's good again, so we're gonna get this thing on the road.
So actually, they had a big tweet thread that they put out. So let me look through this a little, or let me talk through this a little bit more. So Project Sirius, that is an innovative take on the Witcher universe, telling an unforgettable story for existing Witcher fans and new audiences. It is currently in pre-production, like we said, developed by Molasses Flood, but supported by CD Projekt Red, and it says currently 60 plus involved. I'm guessing that's people. And then we have Project Polaris, which is a story-driven open-world RPG built on the legacy of The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. This is also in pre-production. This is being developed specifically by CD Projekt Red with a team of over 150 people. This is the beginning of a new Witcher trilogy, and all three games are aimed to be delivered within a 6-year period following the Polaris release. So when they finish this first one, within the next 6 years, the other two will show up. That sounds ambitious to me.
Big time.
Based on what we know about how Cyberpunk was developed. And then there's one more Witcher thing here. Project Canis Majoris is a story-driven single-player open-world RPG set within the Witcher universe. I don't really know how that's different than the other games that they were talking about, but this one is being contracted to be developed by a third-party studio led by ex-Witcher veterans. I also don't understand why you'd want to leave CD Projekt Red only to make a different Witcher game. I would want to make something not a Witcher game if I was them. But hey, you know what? That's okay. Whatever floats your boat. But that's not all. That's just The Witcher. There's more stuff. Let's talk about Cyberpunk 2077. Specifically, Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty, which is the only one of these that looks like it's got like seems to be like the name of the thing.
Wasn't Orion like Cyberpunk Orion?
I think that's just I think that's still a code name. I could be wrong,
Okay.
but Phantom Liberty actually has some I think they designed a logo for this, so I think that's
Okay.
a real thing in a way. So Cyberpunk 2077 Phantom Liberty is a major story-driven expansion to Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh yeah, that's the DLC. Sorry, that's
Yeah,
announced.
the,
That's DLC.
So this is in its final production phase, developed by CD Projekt Red. Currently 350 people involved in the development of that story expansion.
Project Orion is 100% Cyberpunk 2.
Yes, that is what they're saying here. Project Orion is a Cyberpunk 2077 sequel that will prove the full that oh God, this is some fucking marketing bullshit here. That will prove the full power and potential of the Cyberpunk universe. To be developed by CD Projekt Red team, it has no date. It doesn't even tell you whether it's in pre-production or not. This thing sounds really early. And then was that all of the yeah, that's all the cyberpunk stuff. And
Really quick, both of those things
go.
you announced, UE5.
Mm-hmm.
They're moving away from their engine that they had problems with Cyberpunk, and they are moving everything in the future to Unreal Engine 5.
And that's a big deal. That hopefully can help them make games faster, can help them get support. You have more developers if they bring on new people. They have to, or they have less to onboard them with a new engine. So that could be a big deal. We shall see. It also makes me a little bit sad that just not that I'm some big fan of their other engine, but if everything becomes UE5 or Unity, like those, if those are your two options, I'd like more things, more variety in the options that you have there. I don't not that every game made in UE5 looks or feels the exact same, but there is certainly nice to have more variety in the options with game engines and getting more people to try new different things. And then lastly, CD Projekt Red expanding with a third IP that is codenamed right now Project Hadar, Hadar, which is a new standalone IP distinct from The Witcher and Cyberpunk 2077. It's developed 100% internally. It says IP incubation since late 2021, so they've been thinking about it for a little bit. And it's currently in the conceptual phase by a small strike team.
Whoa.
Like a strike team in this instance means, but a small focus team, I suppose. That's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff to announce in one thing. Bobby, I think you made a really great point there that when you had some news that doesn't necessarily look the best on the company with their CEO going away, maybe you can kind of bury that story if you announce all these new games that are on the...
Dude, I remember when I was looking for Apple and Steve passed, all the news stories started to come out. It was like basically the ink was drying on his death certificate. It's just like, hey, Steve Jobs was point of contact for 5 more launches from Apple. So people are like, okay, well, we got 5. Like at the time, they were gravitating towards that news. And here it's very much like fire on all cylinders. Tell everybody that not only are we losing a CEO who was ahead of this when we had the Cyberpunk stuff, we've got new Cyberpunk, which, by the way, is super popular again. People love The Witcher. We've got a decade plus of content that we're making. Buckle up. We're good. So we'll see.
Yeah. More recently, I think about like when Facebook was under fire and you got Zuckerberg going in front of Congress and around the same time, oh wait, hey guys, don't worry about that. We're called Meta now. We're announcing our new name and everything's cool. Isn't that neat? Facebook, what the fuck's that? Facebook, that's a thing that you don't have to worry about anymore because we're Meta now. There certainly is that kind of PR spin of changing the narrative. And this does feel a little bit in that vein as well. But there are people out there who love CD Projekt Red's work. I know that you and Johnny are among those people.
Yeah.
I didn't quite jive with The Witcher 3, and we all had our issues with Cyberpunk as we mentioned earlier when it first came out. But I mean, they've got the love of a bunch of fans, even despite the Cyberpunk's problems. Lots of loyalty there, and there's certainly a Bethesda quality to these kinds of announcements of, Yeah, fuck it. We can just say we're making Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah.
Everybody knows we are anyway. So what if we just said, yeah, obviously we're making another Witcher game. Obviously we're making another Cyberpunk game. Because that's what we do. I think, if anything, that third, hey, we got a new IP that we're also in the works. When you say it in this instance, it makes it a little bit more real, even if we don't know what the fuck it is, and they probably don't even honestly know what the fuck it is at this point. But just the idea that, hey, somebody said it publicly, they are semi-responsible for it. People are going to be asking for years now, hey, what's up with Project
What's
Hater?
going on there?
Yeah, what's going on? So they've put themselves in a position where they have to have responsibility for that stuff, which means it's more real than it was yesterday or whenever the days before they made this announcement. Interesting stuff.
Yes.
Bobby, I think that's it for the news. Not too many news stories, but I think some pretty impactful ones, and
for sure.
And one make for some big news for this week. Bobby, take us home.
If you want to follow along with what we're talking about and you're watching this live, we have everything linked in chat. Otherwise, go to the show notes and you will find a link to all of the details coming up. This week, we had the bookend to our Steam Next Fest showcase where Chase and I played through demos on Casual Monday. Always a good time. Go back, check that out, wishlist some games, and see what's on the horizon for folks to check out. The day after that, on Tuesday, we had a quick look for Moonbreaker, a game that I am digging quite a bit. Tabletop, turn-based game with some really cool miniature painting. Go check out our quick look over on youtube.com/casual hour. Tonight, Chase and I hung out, told you all about the games that we've been playing. Tomorrow, a game that Chase is very high on, Live Alive, will be up on our YouTube page to check out for your enjoyment. And Friday night, come back and hang out with Chase and I as I hit the links to advance my career in PGA 2K23. And I will show off some of those new mechanics we called out in my segment earlier on alongside Chase. All that to be said, Chase, you've been busy too. What's going on with you?
Yeah, so I've got Gamers on the Go, which is a handheld video game podcast. There hasn't been a new episode for a while, but I've got one that is in the planning stages. Let's say a small strike team is working on a new episode of Gamers on the Go, hopefully sometime in November, and that'll be exciting. You can check out old episodes at gamersonthego.com. There's plenty of good stuff there, and the point of that podcast is to have relatively evergreen episodes there. So if you want to check out something old, hopefully it still is relevant these days. In addition to that, I have a YouTube channel, Chase K Plays. You can search for that on YouTube, or if you're watching live, you can just click it there, where Bobby has it in the chat. I'm playing through SteamWorld Heist, which is a fantastic game from 2015, I believe, and that's been a lot of fun. I need to get back on that, record a new episode hopefully sometime this weekend and get that posted. And yeah, that's kind of it at the moment. There's hopefully I've got some other irons in the fire that I'm looking forward to talking about relatively soon, but nothing to update you with at the moment. So that's me.
Perfect, man. Like I said, Johnny is out, not feeling great tonight. He'll be out on Friday as well, so Chase is going to come and hang out with me. But we will be live again on Friday night, and then keep an eye out on our socials for updated schedules moving ahead. Chase, thanks for hanging out. It's been great. We will see you all Friday night right here on Twitch. Take care.